Hey guys, welcome back to Jurassic Collectibles. Finally! They're here!
She's a killer queen, gunpowder and gelatine, dynamite with a laser beam.
You can find the item featured in today's review and more at everythingdinosaur.com. Check out their site today. That's right, the Rebor Tyrannosaurus Rex Killer Queen models have arrived on Jurassic Collectibles. This probably is the most requested review on the channel to date. And if you didn't know, Rebor make very high quality dinosaur figurines. In this case, they've made dinosaurs that are bearing the likeness of the T-Rexes in Jurassic Park and The Lost World. So we've got plain here, which is the brown version, similar to the one that you see in Jurassic Park. And then we've got the jungle version, which is similar to the green T-Rex found in The Lost World. Now, if you're new to the channel, you might be interested in checking out the rest of the 1/35th scale line. We've reviewed every single one of these on the channel, including the Jurassic Park and the Lost World likeness figures. So do check out links down below if you want to see all of those videos. And also be sure to subscribe and hit that bell button for notifications, like and leave a comment if you can. As always, Rebor bring us really nice classy packaging, this nice black satin finish box with an illustration of the Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton on the front, and on the back we've got a rundown of all the other figures in this line. Okay, so I've been dying to open these up since they arrived. Let's get cracking with Killer Queen Plain first, and then we'll move on to Killer Queen Jungle. As usual, we get this nice little bit of literature from Rebor telling you where the T-Rex skeleton was found, its relative scale next to a human being, and yeah, I believe this is the same one that came with the King T-Rex, one of their first models. Rebor always package their figures in a nice foam-lined box, so let's open this up to reveal the Killer Queen inside. And something that's really cool to note here straight away is that the tail is separate, which tells me one of two things. If you've been watching our reviews, tail is probably posable, and I didn't know that, but also it means that the figure you're getting is much bigger than you expect, because I looked at the size of this box and I thought, okay, it's going to be this big, but no, she is much bigger.
Alan.
For a Jurassic Park fan, this really is Christmas. Okay, so let's assemble the tail. Now, if it's the same as the Ankylosaurus, it can only fit one way. You can see there's a little notch here and a notch on the tail fitting. So if I push these together, usually require a little bit of elbow grease. There we go. And then that is joined together. It's a little bit of a seam, but in terms of the actual colour difference, that is fabulous. Really blends in well with the colour scheme. Now, the Killer Queen also has a little elastic band just to keep her jaw from wobbling and damaging in transit. And here is the Killer Queen fully assembled, and wow, she is really staggering. First thing that hits me is the scale of this piece. I don't think I really had an idea of how big it would be in person. It feels much bigger than I thought it would be. It's a really beautifully detailed piece. The detail just hits you straight away, and something I've noted in the promotional images is how much of a relief the textural surface of this dinosaur actually has. It seems to almost point out of the surface at you more than you would expect, and what that does is it means that this figure holds up at a distance. It's kind of over pushing the detail so that the thing looks really good wherever you stand, and that's really impressive. It's a really cool idea to do that. Okay, so without further ado, let's take a closer look at this figure. Starting off with the head sculpt. I mean, this is just staggering level of detail. I mean, as a Jurassic Park fan, you don't get figures much better than this. The love that's gone into this head sculpt is just staggering. The paint job, the sculpt, everything about this I really, really love. There's part of me that wonders if the head scale is ever so slightly small, and it's the tiniest gripe. I'd have to really put it up against the Stan Winston model. It's probably just me, but part of me wonders if the head was just a bit smaller than I expected. Now, it does have an articulated jaw, opens really beautifully and wide, and that is the first time I've opened the jaw as well, just to reveal a beautiful glossy finish on that fleshy corner of the mouth. The tongue inside has been painted and weathered beautifully. Let's have a look at the roof of the mouth. Wow. Yeah, Sculpted and painted beautifully. The teeth are individual and pinprick sharp. Just beautiful detail going on here, and that is tremendous. I love how wide the jaw opens as well. Just looks really beautiful. Notice how the teeth are glossy as well. You can see them shimmering and picking up the light, giving them that sort of genuine wet look. Really nice. One small thing I'm noticing in hand is how at the back of the throat there's almost like a wall with like striations running down it, and when you look at it quickly you don't think anything of it. It just looks like the kind of the back of the roof of the mouth, but when you actually hold it in hand it feels quite forward. So and there's a horizontal line where it meets the lower jaw. What might have been nice is if you'd had almost like a sculpted throat going down. Now noticeably the eye is actually painted gold, not yellow, and the T-Rex's eye is quite famous for being like a pinprick, almost like a lion's eye, with a yellow eyeball. But by using gold, what it does is it gives the eye this sort of instant glittery, watery, realistic look. So I think that's actually quite a nice choice. As we move down the neck, you can see there's some lovely creases and folds going on here. And as I said, you can see that the detail, the relief of the detail is pushed. So in close-up, this might look almost like it's over-exaggerated. And you can see the scales as well are really bumpy for the Tyrannosaurus Rex. But what this does is mean that the figure holds up at a distance. So once it's on your shelf, that kind of detail all blends in and makes this thing look really, really realistic. So that is really cool. Articulated arms, they do rotate backwards and forwards. Nicely sculpted, as you can see. You've got the nice little finger claws there, nicely painted and weathered. Here's the underside. Very nice. Nice scaling going across the torso here. You can just see the faint indication of the ribs coming through. Here's that very recognizable underbelly of the Tyrannosaurus Rex from Jurassic Park, very broad scales. If you had the Red Rex in 1993, this will be very familiar to you. This looks exactly like the underbelly of the Red Rex or the Stan Winston sculpt. Lovely feeling of tension in the skin here as the leg is drawn backwards. You can see nice musculature in the upper leg there, really clearly indicated and tensing. You can see a nice hips up here, really pronounced and nicely defined by this sort of little line of scales here. As we move down into the lower leg, you can see here the muscles really swelling and the feeling of veins going through here as well. Lovely subtle striping. I mean, the airbrushing here is just exquisite. Absolutely exquisite. And I don't know how Rebor get this kind of loving detail. It really is like a sideshow collector's piece, but at an affordable level. It's really, really incredible. You can see nicely detailed feet, very recognizable as the T-Rex feet from Jurassic Park. The undersides have been sculpted as well. Really beautiful work. As we move up into the tail area, you can see we've got some nice creases where the leg meets the tail area. There's that seam. I mean, in terms of color matching, you couldn't get any better. That just is, the only thing is just that very barely noticeable seam, but in all the detail it really blends in. And on the underside here, you'll notice there are two little air holes here, which means that this is a pipe cleaner tail, and you can actually go in and pose the tail. So I'm just going to put a nice little curve in the tail, and it goes up to about here, and then it's rubbery after this point. So you get most of your posing in this section here. Here's some more of that detail along the tail, nice striping going all the way along. As we move into the other side again, nice airbrushing. Beautiful details, a really nice wash, dark brown wash, bringing out all the detail in between these creases. And again, it does look really relief texture, it looks really bold. But what this means is that at a distance, this figure really holds up. Lovely tensing of the muscles in this leg going forwards, nice contrast in the pose with the back leg there. Nice creasing here as the lower leg meets the upper leg there. Really lovely scaling, very bird-like feet. Just very recognizable as that famous Tyrannosaurus Rex foot with a little dew claw there. And then you can see nice ribs coming through the torso. Again, another articulated arm, very nicely sculpted. You can see the musculature coming through. Really, really beautiful stuff. And then we join back up with that beautiful head sculpt. Okay, so just how big is this figure? Let's get out the tape measure You're looking at about 15.5 inches. It's just under 40 centimeters, about 39.5 centimeters. In terms of the height, I'm going to go up to the top of the neck there. You're looking at about 5.25 inches, about 13-14 centimeters. And in terms of the width, if I go from, let's say, knee to knee, in terms of the body, you're looking at about 3.5 inches thick, about 9 centimeters. With the head, you're looking at more like 5.5 inches, maybe about 14 centimeters. Okay, scale comparison time, and I'm going to do something quite unusual this time. I'm going to bring in my Stan Winston Dilophosaurus sculpt. This is a Horizon kit. They were released in 1993. I've done a video on this on the channel. I'll put a link down below. But actually what I wanted to compare was the frequency of scales, the actual detail on the surface, and how well this model holds up against something like a Stan Winston model. Because this is the kind of quality that we're getting near to now. This is the kind of frequency of scales, and the actual relief detail that you're getting is getting equivalent to this. Because this stuff had to be approved by Steven Spielberg, and yeah, it's just incredible to think that that's the kind of level of detail that we're approaching now. Next, let's bring in the green Papo Tyrannosaurus Rex for scale comparison. You can see how these two next to each other, they actually look really good. But the green Papo Rex, or you might have a brown variant, is actually smaller than this Rebor figure. And you can notice the scale difference, especially in areas like the head and the overall length of the body. So you could make this look like a pair of male and female, with the female being bigger. That might be something that you kind of think is quite cool. And I like the variation in the poses. These two do complement each other, but overall the Rebor one is a bigger figure and does look now more impressive, I think, than this Papo figure. Comparing the two in close-up, you can see how Papo has not so much relief on their scales, and actually they're finer, probably because it's a smaller figure. You can see that the Rebor scales are much more pronounced, they're much more relief off the surface. That said, the detailing on the scales on the head of the Rebor figure is much nicer than the Papo figure. So you are getting a very nicely detailed head compared to the Papo figure. And next, let's bring in our good friend, it's Off Color Alan. He's a veteran action figure of the 90s. If you remember the Jurassic Park Kenner line, you may remember that on the back of the packaging we actually had a Stan Winston model stand in for the T-Rex toy, because at the time when they took the photography it wasn't ready. And it's kind of cool to see these two next to each other, because the T-Rex does bear a huge resemblance to the Stan Winston model. So it's just cool to see a Kenner toy next to something that looks this good. It reminds me of me daydreaming at the back of the packaging in 1993. Okay, moving swiftly on to the jungle variant. As you can see, we get the same info card literature as before, and then inside is the jungle variant. Very excited. I've always had a soft spot for the Lost World version of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Okay, so as before, I'm going to get these out of the bags and then I'll get the tail attached. So I don't know if it comes over on camera, but this is actually a very dark looking Lost Worldian T-Rex. Oh, takes a bit of elbow grease, but you can see across that seam the colour match is actually very, very nice indeed. And here is the jungle variant Killer Queen out of the packaging. And what a beautiful looking figure. Much like the plain version, the paint scheme is beautiful on this one. They have gone for a much darker green version, which feels screen accurate to me. And I really love the way this thing looks. The sculpt is exactly the same, the features are exactly the same as the plain T-Rex. So without further ado, let's take a closer look. Starting off with the head, you can see the sculpt, much like the plain version, is just incredible, and the paint job is really lovely and subtle. Some really nice airbrushing going on throughout this head. Just fantastic. And they've used that same sort of metallic gold yellowy paint for the eyes, which gives it almost like a wet reflective look. And I'm interested to see, okay, so the interior of the mouth is the same colour paint scheme as the plain version, because I know on Vanilla Ice there, King Kong V-Rex inspired dinosaurs, they had different coloured interiors of the mouth. So really here we're looking at the coloration rather than the sculpt, just to give you an idea of how it looks like the green version from the Lost World. There's that familiar belly pattern in the scales. Very nice. I love all this striping going on down the leg. Quite dark feet, I noticed, if I can focus on that. Quite darkly painted feet on both sides. So I'd need to go back and have a look, but I assume in the film they are darkly painted like this. Like I said, the dark variation feels much more screen accurate for me, especially considering the scene where Roland Tembo is trying to shoot the green Tyrannosaurus Rex that we see in the Lost World. And again, like the plain variant, we have a pipe cleaner tail, so you can actually get some bending into it, and much like the plane, after this point it's rubber, so you can get curvature right up to this point here. So I'm just going to try and put a curve in the tail that's a bit more broad. There we go. So yeah, so it does kind of straighten out towards the end, but I'm sure you can play with that and get some more subtle curves. There we go, something like that. Putting the two side by side, you can see how much this dark green is really strong. It's even making the brown plain T-Rex seem paler, which I really like, because it means these two are really distinct in their own right, and yeah, they look fantastic next to each other. I think if I had to choose between the two of these, I'd probably opt for the plain version just because of the association with Jurassic Park and how much fondness I have for that film. But purely abstracting them from the film and on their own merit, I think I prefer the Lost World design. I just think that looks like a really nice dinosaur, and it's really striking. I think the contrast is a little bit more bold, I think, because of the way you've got lighter greens going on. So there's just a bit more contrast in the paint scheme on this one. So there we have it, guys. That was today's look at the Rebor Killer Queen Plain and Jungle variants. I can't stress enough how much I love these figures. They are beautiful. As a Jurassic Park and Lost World fan, you can't beat something like this. This is done with true love and inspiration from Stan Winston's craft, and it's a really lovely thing to see and own and put on your shelf. The fact that they've got this extra relief detail means that they'll really stand out from a distance and make a really nice conversation piece. Okay guys, rate, comment and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell button for notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.
Now you've seen it reviewed, why not pick up your own at everythingdinosaur.com. Link is in the description.